Alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome back to Salam Media. This is Local Matters with myself, Ahmed Kaji, and we are together until 9 p.m. this evening. We are continuing our conversation around local government elections, election manifesto launches, and this is a good time to perhaps look into what has taken place over the past weekend with the ANC elections manifesto being launched on Saturday. We had expected their mayoral candidate to also be announced, but that was postponed. So a big part of it focused on what their plans are for the city of Joburg and for any other municipality which they are hoping to enter and, in essence, take control of over, perhaps in order to deliver services which will be appropriate for those particular residents as well. And to speak a bit more towards these election manifestos focusing on the ANC as well is Professor of Political Sciences and International Relations at the Nelson Mandela University, Professor Bheki Mngomezulu. So thank you very much for your time this evening on Solar Media. We really do appreciate
it. Thank you very much for having me, my brother, and good evening to your viewers.
Professor, it's been an interesting last few weeks with elections manifestos being launched from the Democratic Alliance, the ANC, over this past weekend. Before we break into the African National Congress, could we perhaps get some of your reflections on what we have seen across the entire elections manifesto launch and the overall elections campaign so far for all political parties?
Yeah, I would say that there is nothing surprising, really, because politicians always make promises during this time, some of which they know for sure they're not going to fulfill. So we had the same thing happening across the country where different political parties were launching their manifestos. In the main, those that are not necessarily in government for quite some time, it's easy for them to then poke holes on the ANC that has been in office since 1994, and then, of course, up to the sixth administration, and is now leading the multi-party coalition. But for the ANC, it's very tough because then it means that they have no one to blame. If anything went wrong, they have themselves to blame. And it's very difficult for political parties and individuals to blame themselves. It's easier to blame other people. So I would say generally, there isn't anything surprising, really. It's just the hopes that people always make. And then when it comes to action, very likely happens in the process.
I can understand that that's something that many people will be looking at getting into the next few weeks. The IEC saying that mayoral candidates need to be finalized by the end of this week. So we'll see exactly what comes out from other political parties as well. But moving towards the ANC's municipal election manifesto from this past weekend, there's been a few action areas which they have, laid out. Was there any particular ones that perhaps stood out for you? There was basic services and infrastructure, investment, healthy and resilient communities, sustainable municipality finances, and then accountable local government, and then community participation for effective communication. Were there any specific ones which stood out for you, or has it something that's been, rinse and repeat from what we have seen from the ANC in previous years?
Firstly, I must commend the president of the ANC who delivered this manifesto, who presented this manifesto. Because one thing that has not happened in the past is that he started off by admitting that the ANC has done things the way they had planned, but there are many instances where the party has not done well. So there is political maturity on that side. So I gave them that. But when it comes to the number of items that they listed, there is something to be commended for on that area as well, because they moved from the 10-point plan to the 6-point plan, so which gives you an indication that they listened to the concerns that people raised in 2021. But if you look at the 6 points directly, there is nothing really appetizing on this one. Let's look at the first one, for example. They say they are going to provide water, they're going to provide electricity and provide services. What else can they do? Because that is what municipal elections are all about. They're about doing those things, and all other parties are talking about that. The one thing that maybe I think came as a result of the AG's report is the one on managing finances of these municipalities, because of the 257 municipalities, only 35% of them were found to have obtained the clean audit. So it means that the finances of these municipalities are not handled properly. So I think then it was good for the ANC to bring that one. even though we are not sure if when it comes to action, they are going to do what they said they will do. But bringing it on the table is something that they should be commended for.
Mm-hmm. In many ways, I think those two are very reactive in terms of changing towards basic services that's reactive to what we have seen, the deterioration over the last 10 years, as well as the financial audits not being 100% approved. And I think in that sense, those two are very reactive. But from a proactive point of view, there was a lot about driving investment, job creation, and the local economic development, both within the municipality and also looking at some of the outlying areas as well. Is that something that you see would be their main priority, or would it be restoring confidence by trying to just restore the basics around water, electricity, and infrastructure maintenance?
Your question, my brother, takes me to one of the concerns I raised when I was talking to some of your colleagues, saying that when President Ramaphosa was presenting this manifesto, he got entangled in two areas. On the one hand, he was talking about local government elections, but then on the other hand, he found himself talking about government at a national level. So there was no clear line between the two. Most of the issues that you are talking about, including the one of creating jobs and then making sure that there is development, we have had that before at a national level. We have had a couple of job summits, but then when you look at the unemployment rate, recently it went up by 0.9%. So which means that we're not getting better as a country. We're not out of the woods yet. So if you can't get it right at a national level, how are we expecting to do it at a local government level? So basically, on paper, it looks good. And then it also indicates that the party thought about these 6 points. It didn't just grab them from anywhere. So they are responding to the situation as it presents itself on the ground. But then in terms of the practicality of these promises, I don't see them bearing any fruits, given the fact that even at a national level, we've had similar promises, but they fall short when it came to implementation.
I guess quite damning in some ways to say that, we're not particularly sure whether there will be any fruits bored or bared from this particular election manifesto. And the reason I say that is one of their targets is to reduce Eskom and Water Board municipal debt by at least 30%. At the moment, there is already a culture of non-payment. And additionally to that, there is already a poor supply of water and electricity to various areas around the municipality. So it seems to be a case of reducing that debt, which is still a major challenge, and then still being able to meet all of those basic service delivery issues, which is still a major challenge. So, do we think that it will be possible to realistically reduce that Eskom and Water Board municipality debt by 30% while still maintaining that water supply and electricity supply across the municipalities in the country?
There seems to be a disjuncture between the two. Because for you to be able to improve in terms of service delivery, you need to make sure that you have enough electricity for you to be able to do that. I'll give you just a practical example. On the day when this manifesto was being presented, here where I am in Kabeja, we were without water on Saturday when the ANC was meeting and calling the media briefing. And then on Sunday, we were without electricity. And we were told that when they were fixing the water problem, something tripped, and then we ended up having no electricity. So those are the kinds of realities that we are faced with. And in the main, they all relate to an aging infrastructure. Then the question is, where were we when this infrastructure was aging? It's easy to blame it on apartheid, and correctly so. But from 1994 to now, what have we done to improve the infrastructure? Because we knew that at some point, the infrastructure will give in. So what have we done then to do that? And then also the fact that we are talking about the ANC does not necessarily exclude other political parties, because truth be told, it's not only the ANC that is running all the 257 municipalities. So which means that what the ANC is saying is that this is what we are going to do in the municipalities that will be governed by the ANC. And then we are not even sure how many they will be able to get if we look at how the ANC has been performing. 2019, they got less than 60%, getting 57.50%. And then to 2021, they got 45.59%. 2024, they got 40.18%. So there is a downward trajectory. So we're not too sure this time around how many they will be able to get. But if they do get some municipalities, which they will, by the way, then we'll wait and see if they will implement what they say they will implement, so that at least the municipalities that have challenges that are still in place then will be governed by other political parties, if we're to go by this manifesto as they presented it.
Professor, finally, and before we let you go, very, very briefly, how do you think the ANC will be performing come the 4th of November?
It's not going to perform well, my brother. I can't mince my words. It's not going to perform well because there have been a number of instances where the ANC has scored own goals. Of course, it will get some municipalities, but I don't see it performing better than 2021.
Thank you very much, Professor Mngomezulu, for your insight. And I'm sure this will be very insightful for many people who have been tuning in here to Local Matters. I really do appreciate your time. And I guess we're hoping that water and electricity supply to your area will be restored sooner rather than later. But thank you very much for your time here on Salam Media, joining us here.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
That's Professor Bheki Mngomezulu joining us from the Eastern Cape, taking us through his breakdown and his thoughts on the ANC election manifesto, which was launched this past weekend. Please stay tuned here to Salam Media. Once we come back, we will be in conversation with the EFF's Johannesburg mayoral candidate, Dr. Tlaleng Mofokeng. Please stay tuned here to Salam Media.